Welcome to Tech Notice, guys. In this video, I'd like to share 10, actually 11, one extra tip for you, why having battery grips is good or why you should get a battery grip. Okay, intro. So these tips apply to any camera make in the market. I'm here using Sony cameras or Sony as an example, and I'm gonna leave a few options of the battery grips that I'm talking about in the description below, so feel free to check the description out at any point during this video. Okay, so these reasons are in no particular order. So reason number one is longer battery life. And this is quite an obvious tip because inside the battery grip usually are two batteries. Instead of one, there are two, which means your battery life is longer. Once one runs out, the other one kicks in. Reason number two is better balance with bigger lenses. Let me just give you an example. Now this here is the Sony a7S II with the 70-200G master, and this is extremely front heavy setup. So to hold the camera like this is extremely uncomfortable and it's extremely front heavy. But if you attach the battery grip, the balance is much better, and holding the camera with one hand is much more doable than without the battery grip. Especially if you have the crop sensor cameras from Sony that are extremely small. And imagine having, for example, the a6500, which I'm shooting on at the moment. On here, this would look absolutely ridiculous. But adding a battery grip, it's much more reasonable. Reason number three is that it improves the ergonomics. So let's say you have bigger hands. I have very small hands, right? I could take any camera and it will I fit all my fingers in there. But even with these mirrorless cameras, even my small hands, my pinky is off the grip of the camera. So if you have bigger hands and you want better grip on the mirrorless cameras, because the mirrorless cameras are getting so good on the picture quality and on the performance, more people are moving onto mirrorless, not just for the size factor but also for the performance. But if one of the things that holds you back is that the grip is small, then battery grip will help you out. Having that grip and having all your fingers on the grip will help you get better photos horizontally and vertically. Reason number four is that in some cases and with some cameras, it fixes the overheating issue. Now, some of the Sony cameras are known to be overheating when shooting in 4K mode for long periods of time. And one of the reasons is because the battery inside the battery compartment gets really warm, which makes the body warm, which makes the sensor warm, which eventually shuts the camera down because of the overheating. But when shifting the batteries on the bottom here, the heat center of the camera gets moved to the bottom away from the sensor, which can fix the overheating issues on Sony's or some other cameras. Reason number five is that when you're shooting vertical photos, it's much easier to access the buttons. So on the grip, you have your shutter release button straight on your finger, so you don't have to do that. And you have one of the wheels on here and some of the custom buttons all on the grip, which means they're much faster doing it rather than going backwards and forwards, changing it. You can take in better photos because it takes less time to fiddle around with the buttons. Reason number six is that it can help you shoot better low light photos when shooting vertical. Now you're thinking, whoa, how is this adding to getting better photos on low light? Well, if you're shooting vertical photos like this, your arms are a lot away from your body and your elbows are away from your chest. Whereas if you're shooting vertically and you have a battery grip, you can pull your elbows in, which means you can get much stable grip on the camera and your camera shakes less, which means you can stop down the shutter speed, which means you're gonna have less noise on your images because the ISO can be lower and you're just taking better low light photos. Reason number seven is that your video is less shaky. Now, it's very similar to the previous reason, but when shooting video, the camera is much more balanced, and because it's heavier, you get less shake on your video. Now, the heavier a camera is, the less you tend to shake the camera. It's harder to shake the camera. When the camera is very light, it's easier to pick up micro vibrations, micro shake. Whereas if the camera is heavier, you'll get more stable footage when shooting video. Now, reason number 8 is that it's much easier to remove batteries when having the camera on a tripod or monopod. So usually the battery compartment is underneath the camera, which means that you'll have to take the camera off because it's literally touching the bottom plate. But now, because the batteries are removable from the side, it's much easier to remove the batteries, change your batteries, and then put it back inside. Let's keep shooting. Reason number 9 is that it's much easier. You can get higher overhead shots. Let me explain. Now, let's say you're in a concert or somewhere where you have to take a picture over somebody or over a barrier or something's in front of you and you need to take a shot over your head. Whereas if you have the camera like that, holding like that, let's pretend the battery grip is not there. You have to hold the camera like that to release the shutter. I'll go a bit lower. It's very, very awkward with your hand. You can feel the tension over there and you can't go very high because your hand is bending like that. Whereas if you have the battery grip holding camera on the side, it's much easier to go higher and go over your head, and you can lift the camera much, much higher. Makes sense, right? Now, reason number 10 is that you can get a built-in time-lapse mode inside the battery grip. Now, this doesn't come with all of the battery grips, but it does some of the third-party battery grips. For example, that one that I have over here is a Miki battery grip for the Sony a7S II. Feel free to check it out in the description below. But with that, I get this little remote control that I can also control the camera through this. I can also remotely release the shutter from the distance and also make the camera take pictures in certain intervals and make time lapses with that little remote. So it's a very cool, awesome feature that some of the third-party companies have added to the battery grip. Now, the bonus 11th reason why having a battery grip is good, that it looks more professional. Now, I know this is kind of like a jokey feel to it, but actually there is some truth in that, and I've spoken to some of the photographers and videographers who especially shoot for Asian weddings, and they say that some of the customers really think that, oh, why are you shooting on a camera that looks like a budget or like a compact camera, even though they don't know that the mirrorless cameras are somewhat better than even the big DSLRs, and cameras are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Then some of the customers still think that having a big camera makes you look more professional. So having a battery grip apparently makes you more professional, and I get that, and I guess it's true. So here were the 11 reasons why you should have a battery grip. Now, if I've missed any, or if you think of another one, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know if there is any other reasons. Feel free to check out the description below, where I'm going to leave some of the battery grips that I personally use and I enjoy using, and are much cheaper than the actual original ones. So feel free to check them out. If you did like this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because more content like this is coming out every single week. If you have any other questions, I'll meet you in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys for watching. Adios.